Hey everybody, welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. I think this is like number 89 or 90, Tom. You know you've been posting us lately, right?
Getting up there.
It's
I remember when
crazy.
you first asked me to do this, I thought, why are you asking me to do this? I don't know this stuff. I will never understand this stuff. Now, between this and when we go through the Admin 365 planner that we have that syncs up with Message Center stuff, our group, it's like, so what's this one? Oh, this is the one where we're doing da 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 da, da. And I just rattle this stuff off like I live and breathe this on a daily basis, which now I kind of do. So it's been really nice.
It's been fun. You know way more about this than you ever gave yourself credit for. It's been fun
Uh,
doing this with us.
that is a true statement, and I'm very glad you asked me. I'm very glad I've been able to be a part of this.
Yeah, this has been great. We're a fun team. Woohoo! Go team.
Go us.
Go us. All right. Well, Tom, you get to start us off again. I mean, that worked so well last week that I think you should kick us off and tell us it is Ignite. So we will have a weird smattering of, I don't even think smattering is a word. I might have just
It
made
is
it up.
now. It is now.
Items of things in development. So in development means it's back in Redmond or really at anyone's house since they all work remote now, getting made. They're working on doing it. So it is in development. So let's go through there and see what we have in the in development stages.
Okay, so on the spreadsheet that we work from, I'm actually going to go to the tail end of our in development area because there was a grouping of things that, yes, I'm going to deal with a group of items. So fasten your seatbelt, here we go. However, they all kind of make sense. So a combination of some things for Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Forms, and they sort of interact with each other and they all are variations and additions, but I think they're all kind of cool. One is there's going to be some in Microsoft Teams form polls improvements. So they've just kind of basically said in the description, a set of top asks will be addressed with this general release. So what you're going to see is a lot of things coming out grouped together. And I think they kind of get into some of these as we go a little further down. And that is they'll be supporting open text question polls in Microsoft Teams meetings. So you can actually have ones where people can type in information instead of just pick an option that you already give them. So I think that's nice if you want to get a little bit more quantitative or qualitative answers to things rather than just pick one of these three and maybe they don't actually all apply. You're going to start seeing AI-based poll question suggestions. So when you're coming up with questions, the Forms Intelligence Service, which I didn't even know was a thing, but it apparently is, will suggest some polls based on their meeting purposes. You're also going to see AI-based historical poll questions. So based on ones that you've used in the past, they're going to suggest questions for you. So it's going to be a lot faster to be able to create these things. And since we're on an AI-based things here, AI-based option suggestions for polls. So when you're creating this poll, it might suggest some options for your questions if those options apply for that particular question.
Well, and it's pretty cool because like if you're doing a form now, some of the AI based stuff that they'll do is like if I do first name, then it might come up and say your next question might need to be middle name or last name. And if I say address, then it will come up and say, do you want city, state, and zip? Like so it's actually really helpful. So I imagine some of these polls things as it's learning what you want to do, it could be pretty helpful.
Yeah. A couple other items that they have on the list, which I'll bring up, and there's some that I'm just not even covering because there's a ton of them. But one is data reports for polls after Teams meetings. So if you've used this in a poll or in a Teams meeting, you're going to summary report for all the polls used in that meetings. It'll be shared with the meeting organizers and the presenters. So that's a good thing. And finally, I will stop with the last one here, which I think is interesting, is they're now going to give you the option to have a question and designate a correct answer.
I like that. I'm going to do a poll with the correct answer. You have to have the
Well,
correct answer to my poll.
yeah, and so, well, in this case, he's smart
Is
aleck.
Jen amazing?
She's feisty today. I can't wait to see what she covers and what I get to come back with.
If I wanted your opinion, I would have told you what it was.
There is an actual use for this that makes sense, Jen. Here, let me tell you what it is. And it's the correct answer for this. So what this is instead of just having polls saying, hey, what does everybody want to do for lunch today? Pizza, tacos, hamburgers, whatever. You can actually say, hey, when somebody has this kind of a question, your proper response should be A, B, or C. And now you can actually designate that answer B is the correct one, and they have to answer correct question B in order to get that one correct. So I think that being able to have
was the correct answer.
Pizza was the correct answer there. Yes, I will completely agree with you there. But the fact that you can now use polls not just as a way to get input, but actually to quiz people as you're going through and be able to say, okay, here's what you should have had. Here's what the answer
I saw
was.
this in my head. So all of us, to some degree, have done sessions at conferences or little short things. I saw this as a good way of not necessarily being we're now going to take a quiz, but after you've talked something, reviewing knowledge, right? Of basically saying, hey, we talked about this. How would you approach it? What's this type of thing? And you could throw in a form question in there that would have a right or wrong answer, but a good way to kind of keep people engaged and stuff like that. That's the first thing that popped into my head with it.
Oh,
Yeah, do a check for learning.
Y'all are all liars. I am going to use this inappropriately all the time.
Okay, with that, I'm going to step away slowly from the spreadsheet here, turn this back over to Jen, and Jen can pick on somebody else she wants to harass now.
I'm going to be like, what is the best team ever? And ask it in an all-work meeting, and my team's the only answer.
Do I get to qualify for your team retroactively?
Of course, Adam, you're always
I still
on
have
my
coffee mugs, I'm just saying.
Okay, this is off to a grand start here.
There were rails. We had a plan.
They were nice as we just ran over them. I think they bumped really nicely under the tires.
The mood was set for the morning when I started it by having the automatic coffee maker set, but I forgot to put the pot under it last night. So when the morning started that way, I knew it was going to be a rough one.
The kitchen was caffeinated all over the floor, all over the counter, everything.
It was. So, all right, Tamara, I'm passing it to you.
Okay. Well, one thing that I think is awful neat is for Outlook, suggested times for Android. So when you're scheduling a meeting, Outlook will automatically provide time suggestions that make it easy to find time that works for everybody. I think that's great because trying to manage a scheduling assistant on such a small screen is really hard to do. So I like that it's actually suggesting things. And then also, Outlook suggested replies for government licenses. So that's coming into GCC and will be available in multiple languages. So that will be helpful and kind of speed things along.
Yeah, very excited about that. I am excited for some of the Microsoft List stuff that's coming. So List for iOS and the iPad support, that's going to be exciting. So if you're using an iPad, you're going to get better viewing support on the iPad. You're also going to get List apps in Teams. You're going to get rules. So if you're using the Microsoft List apps inside of Teams, you're going to get the simple rules, which if then rules based on changes to list. That's something so cool, something that we've always wanted. And then calendar views in the list web part. Oh, how long have we wanted those? How long?
Ever.
So, we're going to just.
Then they took them away. What is with that?
Well, the ones we had, y'all, we knew they weren't good. They weren't responsive. They weren't happy. So we're going to get those. So you really weren't, Tamara. You thought you were happy, but you weren't. So
Stockholm syndrome. She accepted it after a while.
We're getting those back. So I'm excited about that. That's going to be just beautiful. So that's coming. So that's great. So there's more things there, but I don't want to take everyone's list thunder. So Adam, I do see some nerdy things. You want to nerd out for a few minutes before we come back to end user land?
Sure. I'm going to focus on two different things. one, there's just a metric ton of Compliance Center updates. I'm not going to go through and look at all of them, but if you do stuff inside of there, there's insider risk management things that are pretty cool. In general, the idea of insider risk management is basically what is the amount of risk you have from the users inside of your system and what they're doing. It's pretty cool. It lets you leverage some neat stuff with there. There's also some updates coming to advanced e-discovery. And one of the things I thought was kind of cool, it will now go down to tell you the specific version of a document that was shared. It's like if you'd gone through and say you have some sort of document up there that has tens or hundreds of versions even, you can now go back to see the specific version of a document that was even shared, so you know the type of information that went in. I thought all that stuff was pretty cool. One you would think they would have had forever ago, but the ability to delete a record label. So now if you no longer need record labels, they don't just have to sit there. I've seen users that have like 50 record labels in their tenants because they created some and then you just couldn't delete them for some reason. And so just having that was cool. And then the other thing that I'll talk about that I thought was pretty cool, they have a couple updates coming through, but one that they point out is a new Exchange Admin Center. So at first, this was just kind of like, okay, cool, is what it is, right? They update the look and feel of the different portal pages that you land on fairly often. I'd say every year you're getting a new look and feel on at least a couple of them. So at first, when I read this, I just thought it was going to be like a new visual update. But if you actually dig into it, there's a couple things that sound awesome here. So it basically says, coming as early as April 2021, people are going to get the new Exchange Admin Center. It is going to have a new look and feel and the same options that was there previously, but, and this is going to be for both the normal tenants and even all the way to GCC, it's going to have tenant-to-tenant migration options, automated G Suite migrations, and things along those lines. Both of those things are things that I cannot tell you guys, tenant-to-tenant migrations are a bad word. They're probably what keeps our engineers employed half the time because of how terrible they are. So you really, up until now, the only option you would have had would be to lean on experts that know what to do, that have been through and done the process before. It's messy. Switching domains over is hard. You're limited by bandwidth restrictions on going through and doing stuff. It's a pain in the rear. The fact that they're putting tools together at the hands of users, the ability to go through and look at this is actually pretty freaking awesome. So a big shout out to that for me back in my Exchange days. That is a huge evolution in the functionality they're giving users. I put that just as big up there when they finally developed good like hybrid migration tools and some of the options from there. I think this is as big of a revelation of that. So really, really cool to see.
I have to say that I actually misinterpreted one of the things that came out, and it was Microsoft Lists, the smart people picker. I'm like, how is it going to know when it's just smart people? Are we going to have to start putting our IQs in there? Our certifications?
I'm
So
never
it's
going to
just
show
the
up in a
smart
people
people.
picker field.
But this is coming to GCC, GCC High, and DoD. And what it does
love that.
is it uses Microsoft Graph to actually display the people to pick from. So it's going to be the people who you interact with most often, which I think is great for really large organizations and makes it easier to fill in those people picker fields.
That's great.
Smart people.
That was great. Oh gosh. Oh, here we go. Here's one. The emoji library and GIFs mobile, or GIFs library in the mobile app. I mean, y'all, that's in development. I'm glad we're getting that for Microsoft
right
Teams.
There were a couple things that I wanted to point out. One, I'm going to do just because Adam told me I was going to have to carry him in this meeting because he hadn't had a chance to go through things. So I'm going to do a Compliance Center one that he didn't touch on just because I can. So information barriers are something that usually you'll have in a company, especially like financial firms. If one part of the company really can't talk to the other part of the company because you have to maintain what has been called Chinese walls, but that's probably a really bad term now for whatever reason. But you had to keep these groups separate, even though they're part of the same company. You can't have them communicate. Well, this information barrier feature is now rolling out to GCC High and DoD, which it seems like that's a really smart thing. So I could see that there's probably certain areas that are using GCC High or DoD that may need to maintain a separation there. So that's going to be available in Compliance Center, which is a good thing. So are you proud of me? Was that a good good one there, Adam?
That was good. You did wonderful, Tom.
Thank you. I'll go back to the end user thing for the other one I want to mention right now, which is on Microsoft Forms. They're going to allow you to manage and organize your forms and quizzes. This is something that I upvoted as often as I could, because you go out to Microsoft Forms and you just have a bunch of cards sitting on the screen. You're like, I did 50 polls over the last 3 months. How do I find the ones that are associated with this versus that? They're now going to give you the ability to manage and group all your forms and quizzes in their own way. So I'm assuming there's going to be some different options. They don't go into exactly what they are in this roadmap, but you'll be able to, quote unquote, efficiently archive and categorize their forms. So I think that's going to be really great for heavy users of forms to be able to start grouping them on the screen and being able to find the ones that they need to get back to for some reason without, the continual scrolling, trying to find where everything's at.
I'm going to point out something real quick that's in usery that I thought was cool. And it's not that relevant right now, but pre-COVID times, back when I worked at Rackspace, I would have thought this was great. The idea of the intelligent speaker thing for Teams, what's it actually called? Intelligent speaker for Microsoft Teams rooms is basically the idea that Teams should have the ability to differentiate up to 10 different people's voices. So if you're all sitting around a conference table and talking, it can differentiate the difference between people that are talking in there. No idea how well this would work, but the concept of it is really cool. Back at my previous job, it was fairly common. There'd be 8 or 10 of us in a conference room, video conference to another conference room that had 8 or 10 people. The fact that theoretically it has the ability to go through and differentiate that is actually pretty cool.
It looked really nice in one of the Ignite sessions that was demoing a smart room. So yeah, I'm sure it works great.
Well, Tom, there's something that you said that I'd like you to take a quick minute and explain to our users, just in case they do not know what it is. You said the phrase, I kept voting this up every chance I got. What does that mean?
Okay, so for just about every feature that you have in Microsoft 365, there is an associated user voice site that is where Microsoft collects information, suggestions on features, things like that. So SharePoint has one, Forms has one, Teams has one. And there's different categories when you get into that particular user voice site. So it's like sharepoint.uservoice.com. But what you can do is you can go out there, search to see if somebody's made a suggestion, like, I need to be able to organize my forms better. And you can look at it and say, hey, this has had 146 votes. And you can go, hey, I'll sign in and I'm voting this one up. And so you now have 147, 148. Microsoft really uses this tool tremendously well for collecting feedback. Now, having said that, there have been suggestions in the past. I think the one that was the primary example was when people wanted private channels. Yeah, that had like 45,000 votes. And people are like, you've got 45,000 votes. Why haven't you done this? We're looking into this. So it doesn't mean they're going to do it, but it gets their attention.
Well, you can rest assured if it was easy to do, they would have done it.
Yeah.
The other piece of advice I would give is the best feedback you can give them, especially on these ones that already have a lot of votes and stuff like that, is go into the comments and say, here is my business scenario. Exactly. This is the business scenario I'm trying to solve. This is the business benefit that I would get from doing this. This is the time that I would save. This is the money that I would save. Because if you can help get them into business terms and give them examples and scenarios as they're going and fighting for budget dollars to fight for these scenarios, anytime you give them that ammunition, it is just a great help to them. So definitely go to user voice, fill that in there. Don't just say, I don't like this feature, or I don't want this. I mean, you definitely can, but if you could say, if I had this feature, I would be able to do this from a business standpoint. It would improve this process for this reason and save me this amount of time. That is the type of feedback that is just so helpful to them. So thanks for sharing that, Tom. I caught it when you said it, and I'm like, people, it's good to remind people exactly what user voice is and keep telling them to go there. Now, we're we're kind of a lot into in development. So before we move on, I know there's still a couple of things there. It might be hard to cover everything today. So I'm going to kind of go around and ask, Tamara, are there any last things you kind of want to cover in this section before we move on?
One last thing is Teams usage reports in the
so
Teams
good.
client.
So good.
This sounded so good when I first read it, and then I got to the end of the description. So only the individual user can view their own data.
Oh, dun, dun, dun.
It's because
Hey, may I
everyone's
suggest you go
afraid
out
of
to
big
user
government.
voice and make a suggestion to them?
Yeah.
It's how everyone
So-
freaks out when they first see Delve.
Yeah,
the same
exactly.
thing.
Yep. So the usage reports are out there, but you only get to see your own usage. So not as helpful as it could be.
But at
I'm
least
done.
it's a start point. So
I have one really other short one. They announced something that they're calling step-up authentication for cloud app security. It's a pretty cool concept. Basically, when a user is downloading something like a secure file from an unmanaged device, so not a device that's registered in like Windows Endpoint Manager, you can basically now have it prompt MFA challenges. Like even if they successfully logged into the device before, once they're trying to download something that's considered secure, you can throw an extra MFA challenge for it based on the parameter of if it's a managed device or not, which I think is cool, right? Because if someone just is on an unmanaged device, maybe logs in at like a business center or logs in at a hotel or something like that, you don't want to then, compromise that. It's obviously a lot different if someone's on their own laptop or on an office in the work. So I thought it was a cool feature.
very nice.
Cool. Well, I have two quick ones. Teams scheduled access review for guest users. I think this is good.
That's
so
huge.
they'll streamline the experience so that you're going to have to automatically and periodically review just who has guest user access to your teams. So that's really good. And then I think real-time telemetry for meetings. I think this is good because it's going to automatically kind of enable it for IT admins and help desk to troubleshoot problems during meetings. So things like jittery, packet loss, latency, different things like that, the frames per second. So if it's looking at all of our meetings and kind of giving reports and letting us know how we're doing, I think sometimes there's a lot of little hiccups we're having, and then we all call our help desk. Hey, is anyone else saying they're having this little meeting with Teams? And it's like, well, no, but nobody else has called in, but maybe there is something going on. So I think this real-time telemetry will kind of let them maybe monitor over time and see what's happening. So I'm excited to see that coming in. I'm sure Adam is too, as he's looking at his Office 365 tenants that he has to manage.
Yeah, no. We already have it. It's one of those things too. I told as soon as this became available, I told like all of my customers about this because I am the worst offender of I've invited someone and who the hell knows if they still have access later. The fact that you can go through and schedule the review of the owner of the team to get regular reports of who still has access and if they're still using it is great. Absolutely great. Amazing feature that came out. Like literally this was one of the features that when I saw it was released, I sent off like 15 emails that day. Like, hey, guess what? This is amazing.
Cool.
Very cool. All right. Tom, did you have anything left in that category, or did we kind of cover all of them?
Let's go to rolling out.
All right. Well, Tom, take us away. What's rolling out?
Okay, I can do that. A couple items that I see on the list that caught my attention, mainly because before our call, I was saying, every time I look at the rolling out list, I'm like, I wish we had these things. We don't have them yet. Well, this list was like, oh my gosh, we've got like half the items on this list. It's awesome. And I've been doing a lot of 1 minute Office Magic tips this month. And I did tips on a couple of these, which I think are really cool. In Microsoft Planner, you now have more labels. It used to be that you had 6 labels. So you had to be really judicious in what you called them and how you group them because you only had 6. Well, now you have up to 25. So you should be able to go crazy nuts and just, have 25 statuses and how you want to group things so you can filter your planners better. That's really awesome. And when I put
just go nuts with all your new planner records. Just have a party.
There you go. If that's what makes you happy, knock yourself out. I won't judge. But I got some really good feedback on that when I shared the tip, in public, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is awesome." The other one, which is really cool, is audience targeting now for quick links web parts. So you've been able to do like audience targeting on web parts as a whole for a while, but now what they've actually done is in the quick links web part, each of your quick links in the web part can now have audience targeting, and you can have up to 50 targeted things. So the example I used was I'd had like 3 links to Bing, Google, and Yahoo, and on one of them I put audience targeting for an Active Directory group that was an interns group, which obviously I'm not part of that. So when I saved that and published the page again, all of a sudden I didn't see that link anymore because I'm not part of the interns group. I think that is really awesome. Just keep in mind, this is not security, it's more obscurity. So if you know how to get there to that particular link through some other mechanism, you can still get there if the security allows you to do so. But in terms of making sure your page doesn't have a lot of clutter that really isn't applicable to particular areas, this is a godsend. I'm really looking forward to using this on a greater basis.
Awesome. How about you, Tamara?
I am kind of in love with the OneDrive at a glance in sharing emails.
I want to
So
see that one.
When users receive sharing emails, like somebody has shared a document with you from their OneDrive, you're now going to see a 3-bullet summary of the document in the email to
Yes.
better inform them how relevant the file is for them, so they can make more informed decisions as to whether to spend time opening the file or not. I would like to think that people are only sending you files that are going to be useful to you, but if somebody's out there
That is
sharing
not true.
willy-nilly,
That's
is not true.
adorable, Tamara. That is so adorable.
I live in a fantasy world and I like it.
So yeah,
And
I
then-
actually tested that one earlier this week because I wanted to use that one for a tip, and we don't have that one in yet, unfortunately.
The other thing that has me a little excited is the Microsoft project export timeline to PDF, because not everyone who's involved in your project actually has Microsoft project. So I think this is a long time in coming, is being able to export the timeline. This is going to be great for executive levels, your main stakeholders, so that they can get an overarching view of the project.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Well, I've got one that I like, and that's the Microsoft Teams live transcript with speaker attribution. So live transcripts provides another way for people to follow along with what's being said, and that's going to then get saved into the chat as a file once the meeting's over, and that's coming to GCC and the enterprise tenants, or it's rolling out now. I love that. I have actually used that quite a bit in the COVID world where we're all on the go and stuff like that. I've been in a couple of loud places lately where there's been some Teams meetings, and I have not been able to, gosh, even with my earphones, I just haven't been able to hear what's been going on. So I've been able to put on the transcripts and kind of watch along the screen and still participate then in the chat. So it's actually worked out really good. So I'd say live transcription has been one of the most used features I have used in Teams in the last probably 3 months. And you would have asked me 3 months ago, and I would have never guessed that that would be one of my most used features. But I have like a 15-year-old that's been at home lately. I have a husband. I've got some construction people here, and I just need everyone to shut up, and it doesn't work. So transcriptions are so helpful.
Well, and I think the fact that you said too that it will do speaker attribution, it's one thing to turn on transcriptions. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing all the words go across, but I have no clue as to who is saying those particular words. So to see Bob, da 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 da, Sally, da 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 da, that's a game changer right there.
Yeah,
and that helps you pick out smart
helpful.
people, just like the craft will.
Like the new smart people pickers.
Yeah.
Well played, Adam. Well played.
Way to bring it back.
There's a couple super nerdy ones that I may be more excited for these updates than I have for anything in the last year. And it's kind of targeted at a specific audience. But y'all, the ability to label classification labels, both automatically and manually, for the normal tenants, as well as GCC, as well as GCC High, as well as DoD, is all rolling out in this update. What this basically means is, up until now, if you've ever had to do this before, if you needed to do labeling of content, you had to do this Office plugin that was just janky and hard to integrate, and then you had to train all your users on it. It was just a mess, and they've said for forever that that functionality is coming out to the Office suite naturally. It's eventually going to be there. You don't have to deploy it on your own. It is rolling out, and not only is it rolling out for commercial, it's rolling out for GCC, GCC High, and even the DoD clouds. This is going to be a game changer for anyone who has to do compliance. The fact that you now have the tools where you can just do basic training to educate your users on how they can go in and apply sensitivity labels manually, and the ability to go in and do this automatically, you can then have posture that says, hey, we need to meet HIPAA compliance, but not our whole organization is HIPAA. Well, we're going to have this one SharePoint site that anytime you're dealing with any healthcare information, you're going to put HIPAA-related stuff in there, and I'm going to go in and automatically apply that HIPAA label to everything that's in there. And again, that's just going to be natively baked into what you're going through and doing. Like, to say this is a game changer for organizations that have to meet compliance is an understatement. Seriously, one of the best updates that I've seen in the last year or so. It's absolutely incredible.
It's a big deal when Adam starts with y'all.
It's so good.
Y'all got to listen to this one.
The other thing that I thought was cool, this is just kind of a nerdy one, not nearly as impactful to me as the one I just talked about. But they have a new feature they're coming out for Microsoft Defender. I see the need for this. The rebel in me kind of sees this as in a bad light, but they're basically going to give the option for organizations to choose to block URLs in Defender. So if you wanted to go through and block certain websites from being accessed and stuff like that, you'd have the ability to go through and do that. I see this from the good side in the sense that maybe there's certain stuff that malicious or people shouldn't be doing. What I think this is probably going to be used more in practice is companies going through and blocking stuff like Facebook and Reddit and stuff like that, which I get to a certain extent, but at the same time, like, I'm of the generation, I think being able to have a 5 or 10 minute break during the middle of the day is a good thing for you too. So understand the feature, understand exactly why they implemented it. It'll be up to organizations how they choose to do it, but you'll have the ability to basically, if you have Microsoft Defender for 365, start plugging in for anything that's registered in your endpoint manager, the ability to block traffic to there as well.
Awesome. Tom, how about you? What else do you have in the rolling out that you want to chat through?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things are things obviously we've discussed in the past because they were in development at some point in most of cases. There's one that I just ran into the other day when I was creating a new page, and that is the page authoring first run experience. So if all of a sudden you see something really squirrely when you create a new page, it could be this. And that is the very first time you create a new page, once this has hit your tenant, it actually does like a user or interactive tutorial that walks you through things. So for new users who are like, I'm supposed to create this page, but I don't know what I'm doing, it new page, all of a sudden pops up. You can put your title of your page here. And then, that's like 1 of 3, and then 2 of 3, and then 3 of 3. So once you get the upper part, and you go down to, okay, now I need to put content on, then it's like, okay, 1 of 6, 2 of 6, 3 of 6, and walks you through everything. And again, you may think, I don't need this. Well, at any time, you can basically say, I'm done with this little tutorial, and you're never going to see it again because it is a first run experience. So I think this is really useful for people, again, who haven't done this on a regular basis, and it kind of makes it more approachable to say, I need to create a new page. I don't know how to do this. I can then at least get some high level instructions on this is how I update various things. And then from there, at least I may know what I don't know and can dig into different areas more deeply. But I think that's a really cool thing to have some sort of a wizard-based thing for the first time somebody creates a new page.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Tamara, do you have anything else in rolling out that you want to talk about? If not, you can get us started in launched. So I'll let you take us either direction.
Fabulous. I'll move on into launch. So Outlook iOS, drag and drop files into Outlook. I think that's great, is that you can just drag and drop the files as opposed to having to go through the whole surfing to try and find them.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. And then I also like SharePoint lists and libraries, configuring the header and footer and body of a form. So this feature allows users in SharePoint lists and libraries to add a custom header and footer to the associated form. In addition to this, users can also customize the body text area with sections. Users can click configure layout in the property form or the details pane to begin configuring the form. So instead of having to deal with, and this is coming out for GCC, GCC High, and DoD. So I think that's going to make it a lot easier for people to manage forms without having to go to like Power Apps.
Yeah, we've seen this in our tenant. So instead of just having that panel running down the right side of the screen where it's basically label field, label field, label field, and all you can do is move things up and down in order, now you can actually get more of a landscape layout. And you do have to know some JSON to make all the things happen and do your formatting stuff. But still, it gives you the ability to have something that looks more like a form, and in some cases may allow you to avoid going down the full Power Apps Canvas type form scenario. It's still not InfoPath, there's no rules associated with it, but at least it gets you to a nicer layout where you can now envision using this in more situations where you couldn't before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Adam, what do you think? What do you have in launched?
I mean, a lot of cool stuff going through. Some of the stuff we've talked about before. If you think it's fun, GCC users can now get the walkie-talkie functionality in Teams. I actually, for the most part, don't really use this, but I did use it when I was at Ignite after it had just launched, because it was a great way if you knew someone was there to just like real quick hit them up and see what's going on. And modern COVID world, you probably don't just want to be popping in on someone's thing. Calling them is probably okay. But in situations where you are in close proximity, but maybe moving, I see it as a cool functionality to be on your phone. So that's now coming to GCC, which is cool. We always like when they get stuff. There was also a pretty cool thing where I saw around message encryption. They have email revocation by end user. So if you do Office 365 message encryption, which a ton of people have to do for compliance reasons and stuff, as part of the new advanced message encryption, they're basically going to have the ability for the end user to request to revoke a message. So it's still going to be kind of like if you used to request to revoke a message in Exchange, where it would be like, it would send a note to everyone and be like, please, mister, Bob would like to pull this message back. And then, of course, Bob would be like, oh, man, I wonder what that message was. And immediately
haven't read that, but I'm going to read it now.
So luckily, it's not that bad, since with message encryption to work, it's basically a hyperlink to your tenant where they go in and view like a web document that has the message. It just makes that web link stop working. So they're still going to know that they got an encrypted message and stuff, but they won't see the content. So still, it's probably better than it used to be. They're still going to know that the email was sent. But still kind of a cool feature that you have the ability to go in and revoke it. So if you send something out and decide, oh, no, I don't need that, you can basically pull it back, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, I've got one that I think is really great, because when people got word that videos were going from Stream, so team recorded videos were going into Stream, or from Stream to OneDrive and SharePoint, everybody freaked out a little bit. They're like, okay, this is good. We're going to be able to share them with guests, but what's going to happen? There's a new feature that's now launched that actually is improving. So it's SharePoint. It's caching SharePoint online videos on Azure Content Delivery Network to improve video playback and reliability. This is a feature that we're never going to really see, but it's launched. It's rolling out. We're taking advantage of it on the back end. So introducing Content Delivery Network, so CDN support for videos stored in SharePoint and OneDrive to improve video streaming performance and the overall user experience. Videos will be streamed from the CDN closest to the user to optimize the user experience. So what that basically means is they've been watching, they've been seeing what performance we're getting, and they're making changes and improvements to make sure that even though, yes, they did move the videos from the stream servers and the stream experience to the SharePoint and OneDrive experience, we're not losing that quality there. So that's a feature that is coming out. It's launched now. So I think that's really neat to kind of see that even though, those changes were being made, they are still making other changes to optimize it and keep it a great experience. So one that we probably would not really think of, but it's there. So I thought that was pretty cool to see that.
Okay. I've got one, and it's about the only one in here that was like, oh my God, this is like really awesome. But that is the history menu in Microsoft Teams. So now if you're using the Microsoft Teams desktop client, you go look in the upper left corner, much like in a browser, you're going to see forward and backward arrows, which means that if you're in the midst of a team and you've got like 47 teams that you're part of, and somebody sends you something, you click on it, it's like, oh my God, how do I get back to where I was? Well, now you can hover over that little arrow and it drops down like 12 entries of your last 12 places you were at. So you can either just click it and go back one, back one, back one.
I just got this morning. It's beautiful.
Oh, it is awesome. Yeah. Or you can just look at your list and go, oh, I want to go to that third one because that's where I was before. No more trying to remember how to drill down into the areas that you use most frequently. This is really a major usability feature that they've added to Teams and really well needed. So good stuff.
Cool. Well, I know we are running close on time, so I'll ask before I run in and do the canceled. Does anyone else have anything in launch that they want to share?
Good.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and do the canceled. We have 3 this week. One of them is a duplicate, and so that is the Admin Center retention policies for Yammer, so not going to worry too much about that one. The other 2 are the indefinitely postponed. One of them I'm not shocked about. We talked about this when this came out, and I had been talking to people about this since then, and it kind of made me wonder how Microsoft was going to be
It's
able
a
to
little
do
weird.
this
Yeah.
and do this legally. But they had a compliance center one that was detecting burnout and suicide thoughts based on our activities and our text and our conversations and stuff like that. And the compliance center was, I guess, going to look for trends if we were suicidal. Well, this feature is being postponed indefinitely. So I guess they're not going to be doing that, which makes sense. So I'm not really shocked. I'm kind of glad that, I don't know, that felt very Big Brother-ish. So I'm kind of glad that that one's being postponed for a while, or at least until we know more about it. And then the next one that is being postponed indefinitely is live event presenters being able to present from their iPad to an audience. Now, being on a live event is still a little stressful. Most live events that Tamara and I have worked with have a couple of thousand people in the audience. When I'm presenting to a couple of thousand people in the audience, I'm usually not standing there with an iPad. So I can see why maybe that's not the device that they prefer you to be on when you're doing a presentation like that. I guess I could see that maybe you would want to present with that, but for now, that's postponed indefinitely. If you're going to host a live event, you're going to be doing it from not an iPad. So, or if you're going to present a live event, you're going to be doing it not from an iPad, at least indefinitely for now. So those are the 3 that are there for now on the canceled list. Nothing too shocking. I'm kind of glad the one's there and the other I'm not shocked. So that's what we have for this week. I think there was a lot in there. I think it's because Ignite was there, but that's all good updates. And we will be back next week with some more updates. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.